Diet culture is super wrong about this one. Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Hannah. I am a non-diet dietitian, and today we're discussing the 4 types of hunger in the intuitive eating space. Despite what diet culture tells us, it's okay to eat when you aren't physically hungry. Food is so much more than just physical fuel. And there are so many reasons why we make the food choices that we do beyond just our cells needing some energy. With intuitive eating, there are 4 different types of hunger that we often talk about: biological hunger, taste hunger, emotional hunger, and practical hunger. Let's talk about why you might experience these different types of hunger and how to respond to them. If you are new to my channel, allow me to do a quick recap on what intuitive eating even is. Intuitive eating is a non-diet approach to eating that was created by 2 registered dietitians. It involves a 10-principle framework, 2 of them involving hunger and fullness. And while hunger and fullness are a really key part of intuitive eating is not the hunger and fullness diet. The media has a way of misinterpreting intuitive eating and kind of boiling it down to just those 2 principles, but like I said, there's 8 others. Intuitive eating is so much more than just eating when you're hungry and stopping when you're full. And this may come as a surprise, but you can actually eat when you're not feeling physically hungry. Along with physical hunger, there are 3 other reasons why your body could be telling you that it's time to eat something. But before we discuss those other 3 types of hunger, let's first start with the one you already know about. Biological hunger, or physical hunger, comes from our body's physiological need for food. This type of hunger is regulated by brain and gut appetite hormones. Just like how our bladder fills when we have to urinate, or when our mouth gets dry when it's time to drink something, our body also gives us physical cues when it's hungry. And the only way to get rid of these biological physical hunger cues is to eat. You cannot trick it by chewing gum, sucking on an appetite suppressant lollipop, drinking some water, or going for a walk. These appetite tricks might work for a while, but it will only make your future hunger even more ravenous and persistent. So if you are experiencing biological hunger cues, the best thing to do is eat. Now, there are many different cues that signify this biological hunger. Some cues include your stomach growling, fatigue, lack of focus, headaches, shakiness, or maybe even like a fixation on food, like you can't stop thinking about it. Biological hunger gradually increases as our body uses up the energy that it already has. And because of this, you might notice different cues at different levels of hunger. For example, lack of focus and brain fog and thinking about food are pretty subtle hunger cues for me personally. When I notice these, I know it's my body's way of telling me we should be thinking about what we're gonna eat pretty soon. But there's no need to rush, I still have some time. I know that when I get these cues, my body is about halfway empty to a fourth of the way empty. But if I get a headache and I get really cranky, I know my tank is just about empty and I've got to eat something ASAP. It does not really feel very good to get to this place where my tank feels fully empty. Plus, when we get super hungry, it's really hard to navigate when we get to a comfortable fullness level. So we get too hungry and then we eat past fullness and then we don't eat for a long time because we got too full and the pendulum is just constantly swinging back and forth. Whereas if we can get to like a quarter of the way empty and only 3/4 of the way full, that's kind of the best place to be. If you struggle to navigate your hunger and fullness cues, you might enjoy my Master Your Hunger and Fullness mini course. In this course, I dive deeper into what hunger and fullness are, what they feel like, as well as how to respond to them in a way that feels good. This is a mini course, meaning that it is easy to digest, no pun intended, and there are 7 modules that walk you through navigating your hunger and fullness cues. I'll leave a link below if you want to check it out. But let's get back to biological hunger. Sometimes our biological hunger cues can be shut off due to things like chronic restriction and dieting. I hear from clients all the time that they never actually feel hunger. And these same people often tell me that intuitive eating doesn't work for them because they never know what their body is trying to tell them. If you relate to this, don't worry. These cues can be turned back on by consistently feeding yourself enough food and making peace with these foods too. It's definitely easier said than done, but I think the first step is going to be to ditch the diets altogether. If you want help with this, I recommend joining the Nutrition Reboot membership, which I can discuss more later in this video. Okay, let's move on to the second type of hunger, which is taste hunger. Taste hunger is when you want the taste of a specific food, independent of biological hunger, or maybe even alongside it. In other words, taste hunger is just when the taste of a food sounds good. An example of taste hunger is when, say, you finish your dinner and you feel biologically full, but you still really want something sweet like dessert afterwards. And this is totally fine because again, you can eat for reasons beyond just biological hunger. And if you neglect this taste hunger and say, oh, I shouldn't eat, I'm not hungry, I just had my dinner, I shouldn't be having dessert, it's only going to intensify that taste hunger even more. If you are someone who chronically diets and restricts, you might experience this really intensified taste hunger. When certain foods are off limits, this increases the motivation response in the brain and you want those foods so much more. But that urgency to eat solely for taste will kind of go away and decrease as you continue to recognize that you really can eat sweets or whatever foods that you really enjoy the taste of whenever you want. When your brain knows that that food is no longer this restricted off-limits thing, it makes it way less appealing. So once again, making peace with foods and ditching the diets is another great way to really find the balance between these different types of hunger. All right, our third type of hunger is emotional hunger. Emotional hunger presents itself when you feel a strong urge to eat something that is accompanied by a strong emotion. This type of hunger is not usually a result of our appetite hormones. It can sometimes be really tough to distinguish between emotional hunger and biological hunger. You might find it helpful in the moment to ask yourself if you're experiencing head hunger or belly hunger. Head hunger will come on strong and urgently in response to an intense emotion, whereas belly hunger will increase gradually. If you feel a pull to eat that is accompanied by an emotion, ask yourself when the last time you ate was. Maybe you're even feeling that emotion because you're hungry. I know that I get real cranky and grumpy when I am biologically hungry. So if you feel hungry for something specific accompanied by an emotion, it's likely emotional hunger. Whereas if you just generally feel hungry and you could really eat anything, it's probably biological hunger. Once you get a good grasp on identifying your biological hunger cues, identifying emotional hunger will get way easier. And once again, it is totally fine to eat emotionally. I know diet culture is always demonizing emotional eating, and it absolutely would not feel good to eat every time you had a really intense emotion. The key with emotional eating is allowing it to be one of the tools in the toolbox to cope with emotions, but not the only tool in the toolbox. All right, moving on to the fourth type of hunger. This is practical hunger. Practical hunger is a need to eat that is a response to anticipatory biological hunger that you won't be able to satisfy in the moment. For example, if you have a long work meeting that goes over your typical lunchtime when you usually feel hungry for lunch, you might eat something before you go into the meeting even though you don't feel super hungry at that given time. But by practically eating before the meeting, you'll prevent feeling overly hungry after the meeting. And then this of course can help you prevent feeling overly full from overeating because you got too hungry. Other examples of when you might use practical hunger include if you need to take a medication with food, if you're about to do a strenuous workout that you need fuel for, if you are in eating disorder or disordered eating recovery and you are following a specific meal plan or meal timing, or if you are just generally trying to get your hunger and fullness cues back and so you are intentionally eating every 3 to 4 hours or so. Essentially, practical hunger is a really great sidekick to biological hunger. It's not always realistic to say that we should eat at a perfect hunger level every time. Doing this would just turn intuitive eating into another diet. Most of us have lots of things to do and we can't just honor our hunger the minute we feel it. And this is why I love intuitive eating so much. It makes eating so much more flexible and there aren't a rigid set of rules that we have to follow. So bottom line, there are 4 types of hunger in intuitive eating and it's okay to honor any of them. Food is so much more than just biological fuel. Try your best to self-assess these types of hunger and honor them in ways that make you feel good. That's the whole point of intuitive eating, is to eat in a way that makes you feel good. If you want to learn more about intuitive eating, be sure to check out my intuitive eating membership. This is a private community where I guide you through the principles of intuitive eating and we discuss how to apply it to your actual daily life. Every month includes tons of new recipes, live trainings, coaching calls, along with the support of other ex-dieters in our private Facebook group. The month of April is our anniversary, and to celebrate, I am offering a discount for 4 months free on an annual subscription. There's only a few days left to use this, so be sure to act fast and use code 4 months free at checkout to save $120. This is the place to be if you are looking for more guidance and support on your intuitive eating journey. All right, friends, that is all for today's video. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like this video if you enjoyed it and be sure to subscribe so you always know when I'm posting new intuitive eating tips. Thanks for watching and I'll see you next time. Looking for more support on your intuitive eating journey? Be sure to join the Nutrition Reboot membership for more structure, guidance, and support for a fail-proof journey of making peace with food. I can't wait to see you inside and be your intuitive eating dietitian.